Welcome to Dose of Social, your recipe for social media success. I'm Lindsay Mauk.
I'm Kayla Pearlstein.
And this is Dose of Social.
We are super excited to have our guest today, Makena Delaney. Fun fact, she's also a member of the Sapphire Suite, which is our amazing sponsor for this season. Makena is the founder of Makena Creative. She specializes in branding, logos, websites, and we are super excited to have her here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on Dose of Social.
Yeah. So we'd love for you to share the story behind Makena Creative. I personally know, because I know you, that you had gone through a rebrand, but I'd love for you to kind of share your background and how you came to where you are today.
Definitely. So it's a little bit of a lengthy story, so feel free to stop me along the way for questions. But it was kind of a culmination of different things in my life all coming together at the same time. So thing one is I fell in love with graphic design because I wanted to make planner stickers and things for my planners. I was really, really into it. It was a very long-term hobby, so I was making silhouette stickers and such. And then I got into digital planning where I was drawing things in Procreate, which turns out is an important skill of being a brand designer. So that kind of worked out. At the same time, I was helping my dad launch a medical marijuana dispensary in Oklahoma. And so I was also in school as an IT minor. And so I was like, oh, I can build a website. I figured I could do it. And they needed one. And they needed one cheap for free, so they did it. And I actually got 5% of the company, and it was to date my highest paying project ever.
Wow.
I didn't even know what I was doing. And then I also, Megan Bradley, who you might know, she's a member here as well. Mm-hmm. I kind of had started networking at that phase as well. And I was at a coffee with her one day, and I had also gone to college. I started my business 6 months after college. Maybe not quite 6 months, but I went to school to be a business performance coach. So I got business admin, all these different things. And so I was going to exit school and be a coach. And I'm talking to her one day, and I was like, well, here are my two options. I really like this design thing. Can I really do that? Is that a service people need? And she was like, yeah, everybody needs a website. Duh. And I was like, okay, cool. And my favorite part of this story is the next part. So I was like, you know what? If I'm not a coach, guess what I don't have to do? I don't have to be the face of my business. I can just be behind the scenes at my computer making other people look amazing. But the joke was on me, because if you're a business owner, you better be the face of it.
It's a very good tip.
Truth.
That's a harsh reality for an introvert like I used to be. I'm not much of one anymore. But yeah, so that's kind of how I started out the business. There's a lot of different facets to that, but I then lost my job in 2020. That was 6 months later after I started the business. So graduated school at mid-July, I think, in 2019, started the business. Actually, I started in August, so it wasn't even 6 months. Then by March of 2020, I had lost my job. So I actually spent all of 2020 just educating myself on different types of marketing and things. So I went through literally 8 hours a day, like I was in school again, learning how to do funnels, how to do ads, how to make lead magnets, the whole gamut of it. And then I decided websites were really the piece of it that I enjoyed the most. And so that's kind of how I got to where I was. But at the time, my business was called the Carlisle Creative, because E-Myth tells you that you got to have a sellable business. That's true. But what I learned later on is everybody knows Makena and nobody knows Carlisle. And so it was really a struggle to get people to identify me with that business. And so I decided I need to rebrand to Makena Creative, and that's where we are today. We went through that rebrand in August. That was a big undertaking for a business that's 5 years old. It was our 5-year anniversary as well, so it was very fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you are self-taught when it comes to marketing and graphic design. That's incredible to hear.
Thanks.
What are some tools that you used when you were getting started, and you said you went to class for 8 hours a day? How did you teach yourself? Did you teach yourself Photoshop and Canva, or what? How did you go about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I self-taught everything or took courses on it. Anybody who's in the online digital world, we all know that there's a lot of courses out there, and being the period when I started being COVID, everybody was putting out a course. They immediately needed to make money on some little thing, and so courses were really inexpensive. The successful people are also trying to give back by giving a discount to say, hey, you take this course, you're going to have a skill, you can go market yourself. And so luckily I was able to invest in a lot of those. And yeah, I just part of it was on like the honest piece of it that made the most impact for me is breaking down templates. So website templates, I looked at them to understand what makes a good website. Like if I went and learned StoryBrand, so then I looked at the StoryBrand websites to understand the structure of how a website is built, and that is a framework I still use today. So I would pull apart like Canva templates, figure out what made them great, figure out what made them better than others, and start designing kind of based on that. Not copying, you know, but there is a good and true structure to design. That's the reality of the design world. As much as we want to think it's creative, it is very structured. And so being able to pull apart that formula really worked for my brain. In high school, I talk about school a lot because I loved school. I loved learning. But in high school, like we would write thesis papers, and so to have a formula for something that like gave me a complete deliverable really helped me, and templates really helped me do that. So anything I learned, funnel building, I would pull apart a template, figure out what made it good. Or I would look at somebody else's that was successful and say, what are the elements here that are making it successful? And when it came to branding, it was kind of naturally, that came very naturally for me. It felt like it didn't. And I love to talk about this, so I'm going to jump into it for a second. But brand strategy, I'm going to share the secret of brand strategy. It's not like this some big secret thing. Like I thought it was this big secret that I could not comprehend. You guys, I spent thousands of dollars on courses for someone to tell me what on God's green earth brand strategy was. And it's really just approaching like your brand from your ideal client's perspective. Like it's basically that simple, and I could not figure that out for the longest time. Funny part was I already knew it, but I just could not figure out like that's what brand strategy meant. And so I was already approaching things from that angle because of my time in cosmetics. So backstory, I used to work in cosmetics. That's the job that I lost in 2020. But you know, this is my favorite analogy to share, but like every single makeup brand sells mascara, blush, foundation, concealer, right? What makes them different? There's only one thing. It's their branding. Mm-hmm. It's their packaging. It's their look. It's how they present themselves to the world, right? Of course, there are formula differences. There are things we like better than others, but like I worked for It Cosmetics for a time, and one of the last products I trained on was like this rose cream, which like was a weird phenomenon. But then like L'Oreal made the same one, and then Lancome made the same one. Well, guess what, folks? Those were the same 3 creams. They were very slightly different, but it's the same company produces the same cream, right? So what makes them different? The branding. And so luckily I was already approaching things from that perspective. But yeah, that's really kind of how I self-taught. There were definitely some Illustrator courses I took for using Adobe Illustrator, which is where I create logos. Mm-hmm. And there were other courses along the way for things, but for the most part, it came down to like breaking things apart and seeing how other things work. Because my favorite saying is, success leaves clues.
I love that.
Me too.
It's great.
That's also a really great point about the different products, but I mean the same product from different brands, and it's all about their branding and brand awareness, because if you are a tried and true L'Oreal fan, you're probably going to purchase it from L'Oreal than somewhere else.
Well, yes, and like so a really good analogy again, hopefully you're a makeup wearer, or at least you've spent a minute in Ulta before, but like NARS Cosmetics and Bare Minerals, at the time I worked for both of them, were owned by the same company. Now are they, you know, the same product? Not necessarily, but think about NARS, like our perception of it is quite audacious. That's their goal, right? Maybe that's my perception, but the words they used were words I was not willing to say out loud. Like their lipstick names were, and their blush names were words I would be like, here, it's this one, you know. I'm not about to say that. Whereas, you know, Bare Minerals was like passion, friends. Like, you know, it's just a very different brand, and a very different person is going to buy that. Especially if you're outside of the cosmetics industry. I would buy things because they're innovative or different or whatever, but the average person is going to pick up a lipstick and see a dirty name and be like, I don't know about that. Or the average person who's offended by that. And then somebody else is going to pick up a lipstick that says friendliness and be like, yeah, that's the one for me. You know? And that's branding.
So going to branding for websites, how important is it to have a strong brand presence on a company's website?
Oh, super important. So when I talk about branding, from my perspective, you know, it's a very vast term. But I'm talking about it in terms of like your logos, your colors, your fonts, your overall styling, how your brand shoot would turn out. It's very important. Like if I were to hand you one website that's had a full brand styling, a full custom photo shoot versus one that has not, you could point it out. I mean, it's very clear. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really important to just give the brand a personality. And it goes back to that appealing to the ideal client thought, is that we already have that foundation in place, right? All of those things are pre-chosen. There's a lot less confusion. And one of the reasons I even got into offering brand design, because really, like I kind of mentioned in the start, I loved websites, is because people would come to me and having to define all of those things, if they didn't have set colors or set fonts, I'd just be stabbing in the dark. Like, oh, do you like purple? Okay, great. We're going to make your website purple, but why? You know, and that's really what it came down to for me. It's like, if you're not appealing to the right person, like, kind of don't bother.
So what did you do with those clients that didn't have brand guidelines and you just had to build did you have to create them for them? Yeah.
Yeah, early on. And then I think I figured it out within like maybe 3 websites. And then I was like, wait a darn minute. I think this is a service. And
so now when you start with a client and they don't have those things, like where do you start? If you were going to build someone's website from scratch, what is the first question you would ask your client?
What a good question. If I'm just doing website, usually we've had the conversation surrounding brand, so they do have to come to me with something.
Like a brand book, a logo, fonts?
Even if it's just, hey, I use these fonts on Canva, I might come close to them, or if they give me some sort of inspiration of like, I really like this style, I can usually like go, okay, I can come up with that if you're really not willing to make that investment. But usually they want branding. I would say I might have had one client this year that did not do branding.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that branding is critical for your success. So then that gives you the opportunity to do their branding.
Yes.
Right. So let's say they have their branding and you're starting, you have everything you need. Where do you go from there with taking their branding and their vision and moving that into a website design?
Yeah, so the first thing I do is send out a questionnaire. That questionnaire contains all kinds of things. And it's usually fairly focused around copy, content, like what are the services that you offer, because by that point we have done the branding. I do know their ideal client, so like a lot of that stuff is very solidified. And as I'm designing a brand, if I know a website's coming up, I already have that in my head to some degree, and so that's really helpful for me. But yeah, as far as like a first question that I ask people is honestly just for like a little bit of inspo. Usually I don't like the inspiration people send me, so then I ignore it, but it's a good try. At least I know that what I'm going to deliver to you is infinitely better because what you sent me was trash.
At least you're honest. I love it.
So besides potentially not having branding, what are some common mistakes that you see small businesses making with their online presence, and how can they potentially avoid them?
Okay, so to me, it's like it's all centered around this one mistake. Like there are tons of little offshoots of it, but it's consistency. Okay, so when we're inconsistent with our online presence, that's when we fail to do marketing properly. Right? I mean, that's your guys' world too, but like you have to use consistently the same fonts, consistently the same colors. My favorite example of this actually has nothing to do with colors or fonts. I told them before we started this interview that I was just going to say whatever I say. And here we go. So
you're welcome, everybody.
Let's hear it. Bring it.
So you know that family member that you have on Facebook, and every time she posts a picture, it has the same filter that somehow is cloudy and blurry, and you're like, it is 2024. I know you have an iPhone 15. How did you get that photo to be blurry? That's her brain. So you gotta pick consistency, and it better be good, or that's how we're gonna think of you.
The blurry brand.
The blurry family member.
Blurry family member brand. I love it.
So that, like, think of it like every time you see her photo coming, you know she used that Snapchat filter, okay? You know where it came from and you know who it is. We need to create that same recognition in a positive light through actual branding, okay? But that is, I think, the easiest way for people to recognize what consistency and recognition is, because otherwise you're trying to create a new brand every single time you create a Canva graphic.
That was actually a really good point.
Yeah. No Facetune for those of you listening.
No Facetune.
Or no AI pictures of yourself, please.
Oh my gosh, seriously.
I understand they do a nice job, but you have you ever heard of the Uncanny Valley? We can tell. Did y'all know it's gonna make you laugh?
I had an idea. That was pretty good.
Thank you.
So when it comes to website structures, bringing it back into websites,
Reeling it back in.
Why?
what are some standard pages that you always recommend a business create for their website?
Yeah, totally. It's always the same for home, about, contact, and services. There are other pages that other designers do, like a reviews page. I don't like to do that. I like to embed that throughout the rest of the site so like they can see reviews pretty regularly. On occasion, if somebody's like maybe like I'm about to do one for a car repair place, I'm gonna put a reviews page on their site, but like that's very rare. I would rather them be baked throughout. Blogs are really important too, but I have a philosophy on that too that probably make you laugh, so I'll throw it out there. But if you're not gonna blog properly, like please don't waste your time. Like if you're not gonna put the effort in to do the keyword research.
And be consistent too,
Yes, and be
because you've got
consistent.
to update your blog
Yeah.
regularly, and a lot of businesses don't.
They can't. You only have so much time to do
Yeah.
your marketing, right? So like either hire that out to somebody who knows how to do it because they can do it efficiently, or just market a different way. Because the reality is like let's say you start your website in 2020 and you don't put any blog posts on it for 3 solid years. You look out of business. But if there's no blog and there's no date, I mean, on the websites I build, the date on the bottom of the website, the footer, it automatically updates, so they don't have that problem. It always looks current and fresh. If you look outdated because of a date, a literal date, it just kind of looks like, are you really still doing this?
Yeah, it's just like in social media. If a
Yeah.
brand doesn't post frequently, and then you go and you look and the last post is from 2023, you think that brand is out of business.
Which goes back to McKenna's point of consistency.
Yes. See, I told you it had a lot of facets.
It's interesting you mentioned the blog because we have a blog on the LTM Digital website, my company, and we do not use dates on the blog for that very reason. So we have blogs, and the blog is not updated regularly, I will admit, but it is updated. And that's our solution, is not having the date.
Yeah, that is a good solution that totally works. But usually when people DIY it, they don't know that you can take it off. Or they've used a template where you can't take it off. So my recommendation is normally just like nix that. But yes, I 100% agree. I think I don't have a date on my blog for the same reason, because I'm like, I don't know. I do have somebody that does my blogging. She does a phenomenal job, so yay Dolly. But I would not be participating in such shenanigans.
Before we dive back in, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our incredible Season 2 sponsor, the Sapphire Suite.
Are you looking for a space that inspires creativity, fosters connection, and supports you in growing your business? Located in the heart of Franklin and Cool Springs, Tennessee, the Sapphire Suite is a co-working space designed exclusively for entrepreneurs and business owners. Whether you need a stylish spot to host meeting, a quiet corner to focus, or a supportive community of diverse thinkers who will challenge and support you, this is the place to be. Subscribe to our newsletter and receive a free day pass to experience our amazing community of business owners for yourself.
This episode of Dose of Social was brought to you by the Sapphire Suite. Thank you so much to the Sapphire Suite for sponsoring Season 2 of Dose of Social.
What advice do you have for freelancers when it comes to managing client relationships and expectations?
What a topic. It's the most challenging part of the business by far. You think you're starting a business to do something you love and you're just going to make some money at it and life is going to be happy and fantastic. And that is not always how it works out. So I would say, I don't really love the term boundaries, although all people that have coached me on boundaries are probably going to see this and be like, what the heck? But
McKenna, you need boundaries.
yeah, well, I do have them. But for me, it's actually been about systematizing things so that the reminders and such go out on their own, and I don't have to have an emotional connection to it. So I would say try to systematize as much as you possibly can. I have someone on my team that handles all of that. Thank goodness for her, because my brain doesn't work that way. But she has, it's taken us like 2 years, but she's like systematized everything. So it's just like the next email goes out and it is what it is. The result of it is the result of it. And it's always positive. It's never, people like to be taken care of. They like to know what's coming next. And we think, oh, it's going to feel pushy. It's not. We all need to be updated. Think about how many emails you get in a day. You need to be reminded of things. It's okay. So yeah, that's really what it comes down to for me. Also, I work with a lot of friends. Like I would say probably 70% of my clients this year alone were like good friends. And so it's about like trying to keep that friend relationship on like one device. So for me, I don't like to do any like client communication through text. I say like, let's keep it all to email so that we can still have our friend conversations. Because otherwise we've got to remember to come back to it or whatever. We're not always available to answer those questions because that's how you get burnt out, is being always available.
That's a really good point. And also, so Makena, I've mentioned, is a member of the Sapphire Suite. She also created the branding for the Sapphire Suite, and Tammy is a good friend of hers as well, so.
Which is beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
I
Thank
love
you.
the
So glad you love
colors.
it.
I love the logo, everything. So could you tell us a little bit about that process and how you worked with Tammy to bring the vision of the Sapphire Suite to life?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started 3.5 years ago now. It was a while ago, and the Sapphire Suite's been open, I think, 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. We met one day at a networking group, as I meet most of my clients. That's why they're all friends. It's a dangerous pitfall, friends, so be careful. But yeah, we met one day, and she was talking about wanting to open this women's space, and I had actually just done a photo shoot at another space in Nashville, and there were some things like I struggled with, one of which being just kind of like their strictness, and then the other part, that's not a word, but whatever, the other part of it was they didn't have like a bathroom to get ready in. So if you've ever used the beautiful mirror in there, I told Tammy we had to have that this first day I met her.
There's a
I don't
whole
know if she
changing
remembers
room
that.
in the bathroom.
Yeah, there's like beautiful lighting and mirrors because I was like, I had to like go to a different part of the building to like change my outfits, which in a photo shoot, like every minute counts. Anyway, that's not part of it. But we right away, I connected with her because I was really excited for a space where I could have other women. One of the things that we really connected on and wanted to bring to life is the fact that like as business owners, especially in that era, we're talking 2021, 2022, the Sapphire Suite opened in 2022, so we started in 2021, was we were all craving connection and relationships, and so many people were newly self-employed that you just didn't have community. I used to go to work every day and I'd see my friends, and then COVID happened and I love them all, but we just didn't have that in common anymore. And so when Tammy kind of presented this idea to me, I was like, yes, we have to have that in Franklin. That would be amazing because I'm not driving to Nashville, even though it's a beautiful space up there, and there's tons of them, but it's just too far. So the branding process itself, we went through a few different names, which we won't get into today, but we ended up on the Sapphire Suite. We really wanted it to be like a luxury women's space that felt feminine, you know? So, yeah, then I think the story they're wanting me to tell is how I came up with the idea for the tiara. Tammy really wanted a tiara. It's very royalty based. That's really what she wanted the vibe to be overall. And so I was like, how am I going to put a tiara that looks super nice and high end? And I was like, you know what? There's this earring that I wanted. And I was super into ear piercings at the time. I have a lot of ear piercings. And there was this earring that I wanted that was just like a little outside my budget at the time, having just been fired from my job and started a new business. And so I was like, I am going to create this into the earring that I want it to be. I drew the earring. I traced it from the actual, like, stock photography image. And that's the logo you see everywhere today. Presented it to her. She absolutely loved it. Fell in love. We had no revisions, and we got started on the website a few months later because we had to wait for photos and such. But yeah.
It's a beautiful logo.
Thank you.
So I have to know, did you get the earrings?
No, I did not get the earring.
But she gets to see them every day on the wall.
You manifested them
I
into
know,
the logo. I love it.
Well, I have this one hole right here, and I wanted to put it right there, but what I figured out is it will spin around. So then I was like, forget that. So the idea died. But I do get to see it every day, and I really do love it. So there you go. It worked out. I just got to experience it in a different way.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite tools when it comes to productivity and creativity?
Ooh, productivity, Dubsado, and ClickUp. So my systems gal is the one who turned me on to those, and she built them out because I, as a creative brain, would never have been able to figure them out without her. But those are my productivity pieces. I'm a pretty productive person naturally. One of the very first things I learned from my business coach, my first business coach, is that I have a high capacity to get things done that other people don't. So I like have really internalized that, and like I'm very proud of that because I didn't realize that. I didn't really understand it, and I really, to be honest with you, did not understand it until earlier this year, where I was like, okay, other website designers don't do quite what I do. That became apparent at a website designer meeting that I was at one day. But anyway, we won't get into that. But yeah, productivity. So that is not something I struggle with. It's the more so the management of the projects, because I was actually able to keep all of my projects in my own head. When you have a team, guess what? They're not in your head.
Gotta communicate.
Gotta communicate. And so those are my two for productivity. And then for creativity, I mean, who doesn't love Pinterest, right?
Yep.
Love Pinterest. Love Font Spring for fonts. Love Dribbble. DRIBBB. Breebies. LE.
I don't know Dribble.
Oh, it's so good. That's where the real good design is. Like, Pinterest is like, oh yeah, it looks good, I pinned it. But Dribble is like...
Like you're drooling, it's so good. Okay.
And you can find any design style. Yeah, so that's like where I go look for a lot of inspiration for like mood boards and stuff. So those are probably my favorite things. I mean, in terms of tools, Canva's always my favorite. But if any other brand designers are listening, they're like, you don't design logos in Canva. You're right. I do it in Illustrator. But Canva's more fun, so...
Nice. So if we could talk a little bit about some tips for business owners for designing their website and creating content. So you mentioned like a homepage, about, services, and contact. Mm-hmm. So how would a business owner go about getting content for that page? Do you help give them direction on that? Or how do you go about that process? Because I think sometimes brands get very stuck on, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Even though it's their business.
Yes, so... That was the biggest bottleneck in my business for about 3 months till I figured out I should hire a copywriter in-house. So that was a very short-term problem that I was able to fix, and we write all the copy for our sites. I would say in terms of DIYing, there are a million resources out there for you to do it. But one of the things that ChatGPT can't do, and you probably can't DIY, is copy. And the reason for that is because you need the SEO keyword research worked in. And SEO keyword research is not super complicated, but it's also not the most obvious thing in the world either. So just, you want to make sure that you have an understanding as to how to balance the keywords, which is a nuanced skill, right? And so, yeah, if you knew the keywords, maybe you could work them in and you could put them in the right H1 tags or H2 tags, but that's a little bit tricky. But if you do need to DIY it, it's just all about like knowing the pain points of your ideal client, and that's really what it comes down to. StoryBrand is a great book for you to read. It's called Building StoryBrand.
Building a story.
Yeah.
And that pretty much gives you a blueprint as to what content needs to go on your site. It's the SEO aspect that really makes the difference.
And do you and your team do the SEO research if a client does a copywriting package?
Yep. Yeah, we do that for every single website. We do all the site titles, meta descriptions, alt text, all that fun stuff. So that's all included as part of our website package because, yeah, it's really hard to do it on your own.
Are there tools that you recommend to business owners for finding keywords for their business and recommending on SEO?
Yeah, you can use Ubersuggest. That teaches you kind of how to, it gives you a good walkthrough. It's more so about blogging, like the way they teach you. It's not necessarily for like on-page SEO, but I mean, it is for on-page SEO, don't get me wrong, but like the way they kind of walk you through the lessons is a little bit more for blogging, so you have to modify that to know this is like permanently the keyword that's in my site's going to rank for.
And can you let our listeners know what on-page SEO means?
Yeah, so it's the site titles, meta descriptions, and alt text, and it's also like picking a keyword per page that is like worked throughout the copy on that page. So whether that's like location-based or how a phrase shows up in search. So think about the way you write, especially if you're trying to sound like professional or academic or whatever. You're gonna write a little differently than like how you would just like randomly type it into Google. But how you randomly type it into Google is how you get found, right? So it needs to be those keyword phrases that are worked throughout your content. And it is a little bit challenging. Like you kind of have to have a mind that works around words for that.
Yeah, and also an understanding that it does take time to rank too. It's not something that just happens to a business owner overnight. Look, I've got my website with 4 pages and it's Optimize for SEO.
Right.
Yay. It takes time.
And that's what everyone thinks. So they think as soon as that website is live, Google is happy and Google knows everything about it. Mm-mm. If you make one little change, it might take 12 weeks for it to show up on Google. Or more if they just decide randomly they don't care about your website. You can always submit it to Search Console, which is more complicated than we'll get into, but it still sometimes can take time. I mean, it might happen instantly. You never know. It's just a crapshoot.
Yeah, we always we don't do SEO personally at LTM Digital, but we always say if you're going to invest in SEO, it's more of a long-term game. Like you need to know that it's going to take like 6 months to really start seeing those results.
Yeah.
But if you are going through the process of doing your website and updating it, it is a good time to go through that SEO exercise for your business.
Yeah, totally. And there's a difference between like on-page SEO, which is what me and my team cover, versus like ongoing SEO. So ongoing SEO includes a lot of things. It can include getting backlinks from being on directories. It can include blog writing. It can include all kinds of things. Managing your Google My Business page, Google Business page. They change everything all the time. All those kind of things. That's a totally different skill set than to what we put on the site. So two totally different services with the exact same name, which sucks.
Very confusing. So essentially, Makena and her team will help you get set up.
Yes.
And optimize for SEO when you are launching your website, but then any ongoing SEO retainer work would be another team.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Got it.
So, what types of trends are you seeing emerging with branding and websites that small businesses or freelancers should be aware of?
Oh, I love this question. So I think we're seeing a lot of like Gen Z style branding, which is almost like this anti-design trend, which is going to be interesting because we're like used to pretty things and sometimes it's not as pretty. So
Gen Z branding. I haven't heard that.
Really?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's like everywhere in
Tell
my
me
life.
more.
Okay, so like I'm gonna use cosmetics again. Are you familiar with Drunk Elephant?
No.
Okay. It's like it's been around for a while now, so it's kind of like interesting. But Gen Z and like it was a big thing on TikTok with Drunk Elephant a while ago that kids really liked this brand. Now, again, I used to work in cosmetics. Drunk Elephant's not for kids. It's very aggressive skincare in a very fun and cute and colorful package.
Yeah.
Right? And so they like a lot of color. They like colors that we wouldn't normally pair together. They like things that kind of like have a strong juxtaposition, like maybe like a neon purple and a neon green. Things that are very like reminiscent of 90s styling. Think about like clouds in the sky and an item floating, you know, just very like anti-design. So Drunk Elephant, sorry you don't know that one, but that would be a good example of like Gen Z styling, branding. It's not all the way there, but it's like close enough. There's another, this is more niche brand, but it's called Experiment. They're very Gen Z branding. But then like Clarins is going to be more of a boomer brand, right? It's definitely geared towards that woman who wants the French experience for her skincare. Same thing with Lancome. It's going to be a little bit older. Maybe that's a little bit more Gen X than boomer, like Clarins would be, even though Clarins makes great products, so we can't always pay attention to branding. But yeah, I would say that would be like the big trend that I'm noticing is just kind of like that. We're trying to have like a little bit more shock value in our marketing. Luckily, my clients don't want that a lot, so I have escaped it for the most part. But
Nice.
But I'm seeing that as a major trend because for a while, at least in the online like digital space that I'm in, it was very like muted, luxury, you know, all very brown tones and pampas grass, and we're getting away from that, so I'm down with that.
Yeah, it might be about who you're trying to reach too.
It 100% is.
And-
It's just Gen Z has got more of the buying market now, which is why we're seeing that as more of a trend. They have money now.
Nice. Makes sense.
Amazing. Well, Makena, this has been amazing.
And very
Hilarious.
entertaining.
Very entertaining conversation.
And educational.
Yes, I learned a lot of new things.
Cool.
I also need to look up Drunk Elephant.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Great skincare brand.
I'm clearly not Gen Z.
Nor am I.
But is there any parting tip you would like to leave with our listeners? Anything you want them to know about websites, logos, branding?
Yes.
etc. before we go?
I have a great one. So, if I do say so myself, it's all about your ideal client, okay? We all start businesses and we want to think they're all about us and who we want to be. And there is a level of that, especially if you have a personal brand. But if you do not have a personal brand, it is so much more about your ideal client. That's going to get you so much further along than a brand that you're like obsessed and in love with. I always say this in my proposals to clients. I want you to love your brand. I want you to love your experience with me. I want you to love the design that I come up with. But ultimately, what's more important is your ideal client loving it. And one of the mistakes I see people make, and luckily I kind of have like some safeguards around this, is they go ask people in their lives that they trust but are not necessarily part of their ideal demographic. Mm-hmm. Their opinion doesn't matter, right? Like, they're sorry, it just doesn't. It needs to be somebody who is your ideal client, falls into that demographic, and can help you understand what that person is thinking. And that's really what I would love for the takeaway to be, is build your business for your ideal client, not yourself.
And then, McKenna, if people are interested in learning more about you or hiring you, where could they go?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's MakenaDelaney.com, because I kind of am a personal brand. Like I mentioned earlier, that was part of the naming issue I went through. And then if you want to find me on Instagram, it's at McKenna_Delaney. It used to be Makena Delaney, but that was 13-year-old me that had that Instagram account, and she lost the password, so.
I love it. Sorry, I can't help you there with getting that password.
Wish we deleted it.
Yeah.
I actually can find myself, and it's a picture of my dog.
Nice. Amazing. Well, McKenna, thank you so much for joining us today. This was awesome.
Yeah,
and so
this was
funny.
really awesome.
Really enjoyed
Glad I
meeting you.
can
Thank you so
deliver.
much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys, and I've had a ton of fun today, too.
All right. Thanks so much for watching Dose of Social. I'm Lindsay Mao.
I'm Kayla Pearlstein.
Bye.
Bye.